Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We're going to be talking about the tale of Otto the Great today, still recounting the story as it's told in Widukind of Corway's Deeds of the Saxons. And we're going to pick up right where we left off after King Heinrich's death. Otto is crowned king in Aachen in 936, as we can see on this map here, which for today I'm gonna be always demonstrating here alongside the stories so you can follow better. He then leads a war against Bohemian barbarians under Boleslav, where a whole royal army including the leader dies. Otto then moves against Boleslav himself, killing many and establishing tributary relationships with many barbarians of the Bohemian area. Afterwards, he manages to crush a Hungarian raid. So Otto starts off successful and is rather popular, but still very much living off his father's legacy, of course, who was an immensely popular king at the end of his reign. Afterwards, though, troubles start occurring. Inner rebellions begin. Otto is lenient in punishing the rebels, which would become a trademark quality of his. The Duke of Bavaria dies. His sons don't want to subordinate right away and need to be put in their place. Otto settles disputes such as this one within the realm. Enemies emerge, being disloyal and burning villages even. Otto still remains merciful though, forgiving most of them for whichever deed they've done against him. Afterwards though, his real first challenge emerges. His brother Thankmar and the Duke of Franconia Eberhard go into rebellion. Thankmar is his brother, as you can see. He's actually the oldest son of the deceased King Heinrich I, but he's a son of his first wife. Therefore, probably Heinrich chose Otto as his oldest son with his second wife to be his successor, and Otto now, predictably, has to fend off the attempt of Thankmar at seizing the throne. Thankmar entrenches himself in Eresburg and raids the surrounding countryside. Eberhard, the aforementioned Duke of Franconia, holds Otto's brother Heinrich captive as a bargaining tool in Lahr. So you gotta remember, at this point in time, if you're leading a rebellion, if you're making any push for power, the connections you have, and most importantly, the amount of supporters with actual influence, that means land possessions, that are on your side matter greatly, and that's always what's gonna tip the scales here. So a powerful duke being on the side of Thankmar is a big problem for Otto already. Thankmar's men open the gates, though, upon seeing the royal army that Otto is leading against them. Thankmar himself is killed in a mystified moment at the altar of the Eresburg church. After a siege, Eberhard himself surrenders to the captive Heinrich. Otto again pardons Eberhard, even though he was in open rebellion alongside his now killed brother Thankmar, and he basically hands these pardons out more leniently than FDR back in the day. He then locks up Eberhard in Hildesheim, but shortly thereafter sets him free, again proving to be a merciful leader. This sort of a succession dispute always happens when a new monarch is crowned. People scrap for power and influence, and this power play here, in particular by Thankmar, misfires, as support for Otto is stronger than anticipated. Remember, there was an entire duchy, the one of Franconia, on the side of Thankmar, but Otto still managed to prevail because the men that Thankmar had gathered around him didn't even dare to fight King Otto, who still, of his recent victory over the Hungarians and of the legacy of his father primarily, had more support around him and in general was feared. Therefore Thankmar did not have the support he probably thought he had, and his rebellion ended rather quickly, one could say. Of course, Otto did not only have that one brother, Thankmar, which has now been killed, but there's also the other brother, the one that was just held captive by Duke Eberhard of Franconia and has now been released at the hands of Otto. But guess what? Otto's other brother, Heinrich, secretly plots with Eberhard, who had just held him captive, to seize the throne for himself. A Hungarian army is defeated crushingly at Steterberg and Drömling, stopping raids from the Hungarians for a long time, and achieving this feat is a big win. Hungarians have been and will be a problem for all these kings. around this time in Europe. Heinrich, though, hosts a dinner in Saalfeld, plotting to leave Saxony for Lorraine, where he fortifies the castle of Dortmund. Otto assembles an army and goes there. Heinrich's army again surrenders without battle. Otto demands submission of his brother. Duke Giselbert of Lorraine, who is married to Otto's sister, rises in support of Heinrich though, so even though Heinrich's army opened the gates of the castle, let Otto in, refused to fight him, Heinrich managed to flee to fight another day, and now has again the support of a powerful duke on his side. A decisive battle between the conflicting parties takes place at the Rhine River. Otto wins despite being heavily outnumbered in a two-front attack at Burton in 939. After a 2-month siege at Merseburg, Heinrich finally gives up and is allowed to wander off. Again, think of this time span here. In only 3 years after he's crowned, he fights battles against barbarians, fends off the Hungarians, settles disputes within his realm, by 2 brothers, is attempted to be stripped of his power and the throne, and he has finally prevailed, but it's only 3 years gone, and his reign is gonna get much tougher than it already has been. The inner rebellions are quelled for now. The older half-brother and the younger full-brother both came up short. With dukes having opposed him, it is clear that Otto is by no means unanimously liked. So this is the first introduction to Otto the Great story. We're gonna pick up next video where we are leaving off here. I hope you enjoyed it, and please stay tuned for the next uploads because the story of Otto the Great is gonna get a lot more exciting as we proceed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.